Ladies and gentlemen, the East-West Foundation was established in 1993. At the time, its purpose, as it remains today, is to provide care to those underprivileged people in India, underprivileged with respect to their access to healthcare, education, as well as for children, protection of their rights. In more recent times, it has extended to include community development in the form of vocational training provided to women, both poor and unskilled, as well as also providing them microfinance assistance to enable them to pursue small enterprise as a way out of poverty. The foundation was established by an Indian-born migrant, a migrant to Australia in the 70s. His name is Dr. Chandran. He is here in the audience tonight. Like all good organisations, like all good institutions, the purpose and the vision of the East-West Foundation of India has moved on since its early days. It has done so in order to consistently adapt to the growing needs. And as a result of its resetting of vision, it has led to the creation of two leading centres in southern India. The first is a healthcare centre, a centre that provides medical care free of charge to over 1,000 patients a week, as well as also operating a mobile division responsible for providing education to remote part of India in areas such as HIV awareness, as well as also reaching primary school children with the intention specifically of facilitating and improving their approach with regards to their health and their hygiene. The second is a home that caters for over 50 children, boys and girls. A home that results from children being left abandoned by their parents or orphaned. It is a home that assumes complete responsibility for the child, including their food, accommodation, healthcare, as well as their education. A few years ago marked a momentous occasion for the East-West Foundation of India. From its initial intake of children came two that graduated from school and received a place at university. A third one will soon follow. Why do I make a specific mention about education? The reason for that is that whilst we may all have our own view as how best to eradicate poverty, one place we will all share common ground is the role that education provides as a viable way out of poverty through its ability to provide opportunity, both to the individual concerned and as a result of that, the benefit to accrue to their next generation. It may be one child, it may be one generation, but it is a right step in the right direction. As I think about the East-West Foundation, I think that there is one thing in my mind that differs the foundation from other foundations. That is not to say it makes it better, but differs. The East-West Foundation was established by a small group of Indians living in Australia at the time. Today, its membership, its support base, extends to countries as far as the United States, the United Kingdom, and various other countries around the world. Today, its membership base comprises a majority of non-Indians, many of whom have never been to India, many of whom never will. It is with that it is a poignant time to pause and reflect on the East-West Foundation of India and why I think it differs from others. At a time when we hear so much that is negative with multiculturalism in the form of secularism, racism, the East-West Foundation of India provides us a timely remember of all that is good with multiculturalism in its ability to encourage, facilitate, and to support generosity from those around the world whose interest it is to see those underprivileged provided with a basic level of rights. Rights irrespective of skin colour, irrespective of the language they speak, irrespective of the familiarity to the country. In doing so, the East-West Foundation speaks to the building of a bridge that facilitates greater and deeper and global support with one specific objective in mind: to raise more awareness, assistance and resource than otherwise would be the case if it were not for its global support. It is not by accident that the East-West Foundation was called that when it was established. This idea of a global vision or a global support base existed back when it was created. If I were a US president, I would speak to the audacity of hope. But US president or otherwise, it remains the audacity of hope for a small few to share a vision to create this international bridge. that leads to India. Recently, the East-West Foundation celebrated its 20-year anniversary, and in doing so, it provided an opportunity to reflect on all that it had achieved, as well as resetting its goals for the challenges that lay ahead. After all, those underprivileged extends well beyond those that the Foundation currently touches, and as a result, they seek your support. Whether you are someone who is thinking of getting behind a cause, but perhaps have not found the right one, or whether you are someone who is already supporting one and now perhaps thinking of supporting another, all they ask is that you merely consider the East-West Foundation. And for those of you interested, information will appear at the bottom of your screen that will describe the various programs that it offers and how you can assist and get involved. Some of you may ask, how did I come to find out about the East-West Foundation? And for me, my first connection occurred in 1995. It was in Australia. I was asked to participate in a charity or a musical concert. It was one of the first events that the East-West Foundation staged. It is hard to imagine that some 18 years have passed, even harder to imagine that we connect in a foreign country. But as meaningful and as significant as that is to me personally, that is not what specifically caught my attention. More specifically, it was a story I heard at the beginning of this year. A story which, when I left and thought about deeper afterwards, categorized both tragedy and triumph in the same breath. Dr. Chandran was in Singapore, and when he arrived here, he reached out to me to reconnect. At the same time, he was asked to do an interview for a newspaper publication here about the East-West Foundation of India. When I met him, the interview was taking place. I sat down and I started to listen to the interview. At the time, the reporter asked the question, Dr. Chandran, the home that the East-West Foundation operates, is it for girls or for boys and girls? Dr. Chandran paused and then replied, it used to be for girls, but that changed. You could sense something significant had happened. So too did the reporter. He asked what had happened. Dr. Chandran then began to tell the story of a woman with 3 children, 2 boys under the age of 10 and a newly born baby girl. He described how only a few months earlier she had lost her husband to a work accident. He was a labourer. Today, or at that point in time rather, she was left without any savings and with very little money in hand as a result of that. And so she took her boys down to the home. It was the only one in the area. She explained her story to the staff and requested if they could take her boys in, saying it was the only means by which she could then provide for herself and her newly born girl. But unfortunately at the time, the foundation and the home only catered for girls, for they were seen as being at bigger threat and bigger risk from being left homeless. And as a result, the home was unable to help. But the lady begged, she pleaded to take her boys in. But their hands were tied. Eventually the girl left. The lady left with her 3 children. And when she did, she returned home, she walked into the kitchen, she locked the door, and in front of her boys, she set the kitchen alight. A few days later, a relative came and brought those 2 boys back to the home. There she explained what had happened and asked if the boys could stay. Immediately, the home contacted Dr. Chandran and asked what should they do, explaining the story of the last few days. Shocked, stunned, Dr. Chandran eventually replied, "We are here to help. You must help." Since that time, the home has been a home to both boys and girls. I say this story not to shock or to scare, for my children are here also. Rather, it is to capture the despair that still exists for so many in so many parts of the world. After all, these remain real stories to real people in our real lives. But I said earlier that the story for me, as I thought about it after, characterised both tragedy and triumph in the same breath. The tragedy is clear. But what of the triumph? From all reports, those two boys are doing very well. And as they near the end of their school, there is high optimism and hope about their ability to secure a place at university, and with it, all the opportunity that comes from it. It is a far cry from the optimism and hope that faced those two boys the day they stood in front of their kitchen. It is a far cry from the optimism and hope that faced those two boys as they walked into the home. It does not take away the despair of their mother and the loss of their sister, but what it does do, I feel, is to capture the triumph of the strength of those two boys, and equally, more significantly, the triumph that comes from the hand of help and the hand of hope that foundations like the East-West Foundation of India provides, and through it and because of it, their ability to tangibly and permanently change lives. Ladies and gentlemen, as we often do, we could talk a lot more, in this case about the East-West Foundation of India, but why tell you when we can show you? After all, a picture tells, but 1,000 words.